2021. Apparently, it did ensure that to be able to produce and deal in coffee, you must be registered and have a license, even if you have only 10 trees of coffee in this country. Now, the legal framework around this particular issue is it has too many gray areas. The Uganda Law Society recently came out and said the agreement was illegal. The Attorney General, who is the person responsible for advising the government on legal matters, says it is legal. Now, which is which? Joining us this morning is David Kabanda, the Executive Director of the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, to help us understand the legal framework around which we find ourselves, especially with regard to the issue of coffee in the country. Many thanks for joining us, Mr. David Kabanda.
Thank you so much.
A very good morning.
Thank you.
You seem to have one hell of a job.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to do it.
Tell me about that.
I come from the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, and I'm leading the team there. So what we do in the center is promoting the intersectionality of food justice, climate justice, and economic justice.
Wow.
Many human rights lawyers go for civil political rights, and we forget the linchpin of our existence. That's right. Economic rights.
Economic rights.
If you don't have money in your pocket, just forget about life. Yes.
Isn't that
many people,
too radical?
Yes, and I'm intentional about it.
All right.
Many people do not understand that when you do not understand the economics of your ecosystem,
that's right,
you are as good as a dead body.
Wow.
Yes.
That's interesting. And here we have an ecosystem in the coffee industry that is not only not clear, but incredibly hard to understand. We have an agreement that has caused a bit of a furore in the country, that is between the Minister of Finance and the Uganda Vinci Coffee Company that belongs to the embattled investor. Many of us are saying this is illegal. The Uganda Law Society has also accepted that it's not illegal, but the Attorney General insists it's legal. And then we have the National Coffee Act of 2021 that put in place a framework that actually means the agreement is legal. Take us through exactly where we are.
Yeah, the Uganda coffee sector is endangered. And all of us are endangered. And this is why, and when I say all of us, I'm speaking about me as a coffee farmer, small scale. Because many Ugandans, even those ones in corporate, class,
settings,
who deal in coffee, it is small scale. It's very difficult to find 2 large farms of coffee. So we are endangered. Even everyone in the value chain, and this is why. We have analyzed and listened to the debate about coffee ever since this agreement came up. And the first line everyone jumps to say is the agreement is illegal. The agreement is illegal. You see, in law we have the rule of law.
That's right.
You can talk about rule of law, and we have also rule by law.
Rule by law.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is too much that has happened around this coffee sector. Maybe someone hatched a plan when we were sleeping, and by the time we are caught up, it is maybe too late. And this is how. In 2013, there was a debate. The debate was a little under the carpet, to have a coffee policy, which on the face of it looked very nice. In fact, when you read the policy,
looked very well intentioned.
Yes, it is beautiful. They are talking about value addition, good inputs and everything. And when you read it on the face value, it is very nice.
And improving extension services.
Now, they started working on a National Coffee Act for some time, but it was going to be very difficult if everyone was alert. In 2021, just last year, when everyone was grappling with COVID, they bring the Coffee Act, the National Coffee Act. You remember that there was some kind of, pushing back here and there, but because everyone was now about themselves, the Coffee Act passed. And that is where the danger is. Because this Coffee Act is taking away all the indigenous rights. You can now not exchange seed between a coffee farmer. When I was growing up, my mother could pick coffee from our garden and then we plant. It is illegal under that act now. You must be licensed for you to have a nursery bed. You must buy only from licensed, breeders, and all that is in that act. That is to the extent how bad that act is.
So effectively, the dispensation that we are under right now in terms of the agreement that was signed with a controversial investor is ruled by law.
Yes. So whoever is hatching out this plan, and this is, I even want to speak to all lawyers who want to engage in the sector, to go beyond what they see in the agreement.
That's right.
To go beyond what they see in the law, to unpack it. We are taught to unpack, and lawyers do unpack, and this is what we do at the Center for Food. Every policy that has a linkage to economic rights, to food, and I'm going to tell you why food comes into coffee.
Of course.
Now, let me finish with the law.
Yeah.
Now, this law gives wide powers to duty bearers, and I don't want to use the word government. I want to use...
I was just about to ask you, why do you keep referring to they? Shouldn't we say the government or the state? Because the Minister of Finance and all stakeholders are very specifically the state. So,
but have you got time to read that agreement?
The agreement, I've read the agreement, and not exhaustively, but of course I do have
have you looked at the signature page? The
signature page,
yes.
Yeah. It lacked one of the very critical people who were supposed to put on.
Now, every Ugandan who looks at that agreement should be able to look at the signature page. And this is why I don't want to say government. I want to speak to those people who are sitting in their offices and they think that they can deal with all Ugandans the way they want.
No, what we know, the people sitting in these offices are the Finance Minister, Matia Kasaija. We have the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, who is also the Secretary to the Treasury, Ramadan Gobi. Ramadan Gobi, by the way, blocked me on Twitter because I talked about the fact that he's one of the guys who signed this agreement and is not very clear exactly on how it intends to play out. So are you referring to Ramadan Gobi and Mr. Kasaija?
Would government block you on Twitter if you spoke to them about something that benefits us as Ugandans?
They shouldn't be seen.
They shouldn't. So I don't want to discuss people.
Okay, of course.
But let's go back to these issues. And Ugandans should now learn to isolate some issues. If you have
from the state to from the people state playing to from people,
and we need now maybe to learn. I'll be coming back to that.
Are we under siege?
How people should be able to see what belongs to them and get it away from people who want to take it away from them.
Wow.
So this is, when you look at this law, the law is taking away everything that we had when it comes to coffee. And I'm talking about this issue called coffee because we have rights as Ugandans. Uganda is a constitutional republic. Under Article 20, the government has not only a constitutional but a legal obligation to protect, respect, and fulfill rights. And that article is very beautifully written because it is talking about all organs of governments, agencies, and all persons, including those individuals that you've talked about.
The ones whose names appear.
Whose names appear. Yep. Because before you append your signature, you must also be, reminded that there are constitutional obligations that you must not back off from. Then discrimination. How on earth can you read a document that is giving away the treasures of this country to one person, or call it a company? And you say you're talking about 60,000 tons. This is not what that agreement is talking about. You say it mentions 60,000 and it gives much expansive other rights and in other clauses, because this particular company has been allowed to export till when it has the muscle to run its business. You understand what I'm talking about?
No, I want to. Can you?
In one of the clauses, they are talking about 60 tons. That is like the capacity.
The capacity.
But in the next clause, they are allowing the company to export coffee beans. In the next clause, they are allowing the company to do all ancillary activities that can support the company
to be self-sufficient.
Yes, meaning that they can even deal with all the tons that are in Uganda. And they can only export and nobody will stop them.
Earlier you spoke about the fact that this particular act was passed in 2021, the National Coffee Act. You described Ugandans as people who were sleeping when that act was being passed. You were part of us who were sleeping. You're a lawyer. You're the executive director at the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. Where the hell were you?
We were on these streets. But you remember...
What were you doing? You should have informed people.
And I think I would be unfair if I said that Ugandans were sleeping. I think what I said was that we were dealing with COVID. You remember that time that you even if you walked from your home, you'd even be kicked or beaten because we were under strict lockdown, curfew. You understand?
That's right.
Up to now, people are still suffering because you see at 5 or 6 in Kampala, all the streets are empty. People are running back home. It is still taking on. But anyway, I wanted to come back to the Constitution.
Yeah, very clear.
Yes, quickly. That Article 21 makes a constitutional obligation on government not to discriminate. You let all the players, the stakeholders, be. And when we go to Article 40, the economic rights, we have rights as Ugandans to practice the trade in coffee.
Just take Ugandan through exactly, away from the fact that they won't be the ones to export these coffee beans in the manner in which they are supposed to be exported. Take us through the aspects that have been completely ripped from the Ugandan in as far as this agreement is concerned as a lifeline for the vulnerable Ugandans who are dealing in coffee.
This is what is going to happen. If someone is determining the price, then they will take away all the margin that you ought to have got as, for example, a coffee farmer. So the kind of money that you ought to have got is going to either considerably be reduced. You understand? So you'll be like a slave working for some other person. That is number one. Then number two, for this person who has been into the business of coming to a coffee farmer, you buy, go and maybe dry, such that you make also margin when you are selling, for example, to a processor. That is going also to be taken away.
So the middlemen are also out
of business. The middlemen are out of business. Then you, the coffee processor, do you know that some Ugandan, some coffee farmers have actually been regrouping themselves to export? You will not be able to export. A giant has come. They have priority over your coffee. You can't. That is going to be taken away from you. This is the meaning of this agreement and the act and the legal framework within which everything is being, implemented.
So very quickly, where do we go from here?
Maybe quickly before we go to that, I want the powers that be. We are not here to lecture you on anything.
Sure.
We are just here to speak because we think that this is our lifeline. Now, you need not only legislate for Uganda. Coffee, if you read the literature, it is only 1% of Ugandans who drink coffee. This is a beverage, meaning that our coffee is drunk elsewhere. Don't be oblivious of the fact that the world is watching. What if we got an international, for example, the international world can say we are not taking Uganda's coffee because of the unfair practice. We are raising these voices. Don't stamp us down. Don't push us away. Let us negotiate. If the agreement must be signed, let it be signed with fair terms.
All right. Time is not our best ally, Mr. David Kabanda. Very briefly, in under 30 seconds, where do we go from here?
Okay, where we go now? I think I've touched on that. Let us have a compromise between government and all the stakeholders. Let us make sure that the laws and the Ugandans don't sleep. this time. When you read the national dailies,
that's right,
it's as if now we have moved on. It's not anywhere on the front pages. I have scanned through the newspapers, and it is not reported
We're
anywhere.
actually waiting for the report from the Trade and Tourism Committee.
But we shouldn't be waiting for those guys. They passed the law. It should be us Ugandans to raise up and say, guys, this is what we need.
This is what we need.
Thank you so much.
Mr. David Kabanda, many thanks for joining us and offering us the perspective that we so badly needed in understanding what is happening in the coffee industry. That has been Mr. David Kabanda, the Executive Director at the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights there. Morning at NTV continues. We shall be speaking to a number of youth on what is being done and exactly how they can advise government to tackle the economic hardships in the country. Priscilla Regina Naloga shall be coming up with that. Do stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
We should be seeing modern roads, which now will be named after we, the Africans.
We have all these good people that have done